So I was out, the other day, and I had to help my brother fix his computer. Uh, Watashi wa ontoto desu. Yes, I had to help him fix his computer, right? And naturally, of course, this leads to, of course, many questions. I said, well, okay, so what happened to your computer? And then he said, oh, it won't turn on. I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. What do you do with your computer? And he's like, and then, but knowing my ototo, I know what he's gonna say. He's gonna say, oh, I just, man, I just use my computer to play video games. And it's like, because he's an epic gamer. Gamers. Oh, yes, that's why he uses Windows, because he is a gamer, right? And I look at his computer, right? I do the classic thing. It's like, hey, let's reboot it? And he's like, I did. And I tried, even resetting Windows and everything. So I was like, okay. So, I do what I do what I usually do, right? I bust out a Linux USB, and then I say, okay, all right, you're gonna dump all of your personal belongings in here. And of course, the normie he is says, but man, everything's in Google Drive. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So I tell him to dump all of his things into a thumb drive that I have, and I'm like, all right. So now that you've dumped all your belongings into the stuff that you have in OneDrive, I want you to, tell me your Windows product key. And he just stares at me blankly, and he's like, I thought they would do that for me. And then I'm like, okay, so you need to know your Windows product key, right? Because if you know your Windows product key, right, that's the kind of thing that's going to get you out of trouble in the future and that kind of deal, right? You're gonna have to also reinstall all of your games. And then he's like, why did I do this? I didn't do anything wrong. And then I just look at him, and then, I stare at him deep, deep in my eyes, and then I say, you're right. You didn't do anything wrong. Microsoft will just do this to you because their operating system is a literal dumpster fire. There is so much wrong with their operating system. There are 7 versions of it, and none of them work properly. People can't print things properly. Heck, in some cases, you can't even play like video games you paid for or whatever. Right? That's the sad truth about using Windows. It's just all this ridiculous nonsense. So I'm like, all right. So I bust out, Ventoy USB with Windows 10 like pre-installed, right? So I go hop on the thing, and then I plug in the generic Windows product key that will give you Windows 10 Home for free, right? And once I did that, I entered in the key, I waited for it to install, and then what do you know, like magic, Windows 10 21H2 pops it back up on his computer, and it's like, oh, that's really funny now. Why? And then he's like, but how is a normal person going to learn how to do this? Yo, you're never gonna learn how to do this. Normal people will never learn how to fix their computers. And I said to him, if you want a computer, like a normie computer that works, go get a Mac. And he's like, I can't play video games on that. And I said, well, I guess your only option's Linux. But if you play Linux, buy competitive games like Valorant and like whatever, right? So, of course, right? That leads me. This all just leads me to believe that, like, it's like, and then it's like, then he's like, all right, I'm gonna use my other laptop. You're just gonna sit here and fix my computer. I'm like, fine, sure, whatever. So I sit down at his computer, and I have some scripts which go through, some PowerShell scripts which go through all the debloating, the windows. You have to debloat the windows. You have to remove all their privacy invasive garbage. You have to do things like just like install like NVIDIA and AMD drivers and blah blah blah. But as I'm like going through all of this, I'm installing all Steam and all of his games and NVIDIA and Firefox. It's like an OnlyOffice. I just like I'm like, how is my brother going to maintain this thing? He doesn't even know how to like install like Minecraft mods, let alone like open PowerShell to like run Chocolatey and keep all of his stuff updated. It's impossible. Heck, the only reason why I think he got into this mess was because he thought, oh well, if I put my computer in like suspend or whatever, Windows Update won't run. Yeah, that's funny. The only way to stop Windows Update is to stop Windows from connecting to the internet, right? You look out for that in a future video. This is just like, it's like And yes, he doesn't keep up with Patch Tuesday. I asked him, "Are you keeping up with Patch Tuesday?" He just stared at me like, what's Patch Tuesday?" And I'm like, "All right, he doesn't know." Right? And it's like, how in the world are normal people going to know this? And then, never mind, like this, like, what if I'm not around to help him? Right? What if something terrible and awful happens? Something along the lines of like, "Oh, my Windows won't turn on anymore," or like my display is flickering, or like the fonts and Explorer size weird, or like the worst of the worst, what if I have to reinstall Windows again and he doesn't even have a medium to do it? And it's like, what am I going to tell him to do? I mean, obviously I can tell him, no, go download the media creation tool, get a 16 gig USB, plug it into your computer, and install Windows onto the USB. But how is he going to do that? He doesn't know how to do it. But here's an even more nasty question I got in my head. Okay, it was like, what do I do, in 2025? For those who don't know, 2025 is the day that Windows 10 reaches its end of life in October 2025. What the heck am I supposed to do in 2025 when he's gonna learn, oh, your computer is not supported to use Windows 11 because you don't have a TPM module or an AMD chip powerful or secure enough to run Windows 11. It's like, what am I going to tell him to do then? Probably give me his computer, because he doesn't actually know how to install a TPM module into his computer, into the expansion port, right? It's like, this is the world we live in. Guys, it's awful. This is terrible. It's like, how do normal people use Windows, right? You probably just use Windows and hate it. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the success of like smartphones have partially been a success because everyone, and I mean everyone, has this expectation that Windows is the default, right? And when stuff like like Mac OS, or like like Android or like iOS come along, right? They basically have a significantly better user experience and aren't dumpster fires, which you can't actually, like, there's no concrete way for developers to actually just go out and write programs for Windows. It's like there's 20 different ways to write programs for Windows, and it's like, no. And then at this point people are like, well, I'm not gonna bother, I'm just gonna use something like Electron because it's easier, and I don't want to put effort into knowing things about like cross-platform development and stuff. And it's disgusting. It's all so disgusting. Never mind the fact that this is another story. I had to help a friend. He was he was having trouble running, of all things, Killing Floor 3, whatever, right? And it's like, he said, easy anti-cheat won't run on my machine. I'm like, that's really interesting. And I said, hey, when's the last time you ran Windows Update? He's like, I don't know, 5 years ago. And then I look at his computer and it shows that he's running Windows 10 1809. I'm like, dude, you're not even running a supported version of Windows 10. He's like, what? There's different versions of Windows 10? Yes, because Microsoft releases 2 of them every year. And it's like, it's awful. And no, and then here's the worst part, right? I was reading the news, right? And me reading the news, I usually get angry. I try to like put things on hold or ignore them or whatever. But what happened was, I saw like an article from Zach Bowden, ZDNet, which said something along the lines of, hey, well, there's going to be Windows 12, or like new incremental releases of Windows every 3 years. So if you thought it was bad with Windows 11 every 10 years, it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse, because we're going to get a new version of Windows every 3 years, and it's going to not be tested. It's going to be broken and buggy and stupid. And I'm honestly shocked that this is even a thing. And it's like, there's no way I'm gonna, no. And let's go back to my brother, okay? There's no way in the world I'm gonna go to my brother and I'm gonna go and talk to him and say, hey, I want you to use Linux. No, he can't do that. He's a gamer, okay? Gamers can't get Game Pass if they use Windows. I'm pretty sure Microsoft does that on purpose, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, he's locked into Windows and he's just imprisoned by it, and it's sad. It's horrible. And I just can't take it much more of this. It's like, how, like, look, I know I lampoon like Panos Panay for making, saying crap about his family or whatever, but it's like, It's like he spends more time talking about his family than he does fixing the operating system that people actually run. It's terrifying, guys, and it's like this is the kind of company Microsoft is. The company that's so incompetent they can't even communicate something like, oh, we're disabling macros by default, but then the entire IT world has a meltdown. But you can enable macros if you use group policy editor, but they don't say that anywhere because Microsoft's marketing department is run by hamster wheels with gerbils, like, who are like dying of dehydration. It's like it's not even running. It's practically non-existent. The fact that you have to go to like 7 different blogs to learn basic news about or events about Microsoft is awful. And it's like you go to like watch their like informational sessions or whatever for like developers, or like, you know, that horrible hybrid Microsoft hybrid work event. It's like it's totally untenable, totally, right? And you know, I guess I have this sort of like mentality of like, I'm just not gonna deal with it. Like, I haven't used Windows, at least for my personal life, in 8 years. I'm not gonna start now. It's ridiculous. Heck, because of the advancements that have been made in, like, you know, like Proton or whatever, Wine and Bottles and Lutris and Heroic and Legendary and whatever, all my games just work fine. I mean, some of them work better. I mean, obviously, you know, because it's like Animal Farm, you know, some games happen to be created better than others. But you know, it's like at this point, like you know, I used to be in the mentality of, I'll just buy a Windows computer, I'll just cough up the Windows tax and I'll get a thing that works. But now I'm just like, you know, things will work, but it's like you can't even guarantee that it'll work with default settings now. When you hear about companies like Lenovo distrusting keys that aren't made by Microsoft or whatever, heck, they even distrust their own keys. It's crazy, right? And this is the kind of like thing that we're talking about here. It's like it's getting harder and harder, and the only way, you know, we can fix this, the only way you can fix this for like normal people, is you have to like go and like do things for them, but like, or whatever, and it's like they just kind of just accept it or whatever. It's like the last time I did this with my brother, he downloaded a Minecraft mod which was ransomware in disguise. It's like you hear about all of these awful things happening, and it's like how are you gonna make, I don't know, like computers friendly to your parents? It's like, how are you gonna make Windows work for your parents? And it's like, compared to like, you know, like using Windows, which is like a desktop environment made like 10 years ago, and even Windows 11 to a good degree is that exact same desktop environment from 10 years ago, except this time they moved the start menu to the center. And rounded corners, because everyone likes rounded corners, and even though Mac and GNOME did rounded corners first, who cares? I don't care. And at this, it's just it's just a mess. It's a mess. It's like I can't, this is why I hate Windows. You want to know why I hate Windows? It's because of all of these things. You have to go through all of this obscure crap. They make it very difficult for you to like do things properly if your computer, like, you thought it was hard to do things with Mac. It's like you try to use like a lot of open programs on Windows. Like, I mean, there are some exceptions, you know, like OBS or whatever, and it's like you try using it on Windows, and it's like it's such an inferior experience. You can't even run Emacs on Windows, but you can run Emacs on Mac. It's like, it's bananas. Like, I even had an issue where you can't download like Crunchyroll videos through the Y word that cannot be named, and it's like ridiculous. Like, and legally, of course, too, which is the even more disgusting part, because I know you can do it on Mac and Linux and not have it, if the Y word cannot be named, and not have any problems at all. And it's like, ugh. It's like, how can people put up with this? And it's like, the only way this is going to change, right? The only way Microsoft is really going to change is if the tech-savvy people, or the people in business, all round together and say, no, we're not going to put up with Microsoft's garbage anymore. And unfortunately, for a lot of enterprises, that's not true, because people can't put up with have to keep putting up with Microsoft's garbage, because if they don't, their company is gonna die in flames because they use the like tax software from 1997 that still rely on components from Windows XP, and it's like I really can't take this anymore. Like this is why you use Linux. This is why you use Mac. This is why you use like heck you probably get a better experience out of using your phone. It's like come I Windows is a mess. Don't deal with it. That's my angry rant for today. And be sure to like the video. Like this video if you want me to shave my head and move into the woods. All right, and subscribe for more more content. More stuff's on the way, especially related to Windows and fixing Windows' crappy problems. All right. See you all later, and be sure to help your friends and family when they have problems with Windows.